Welcome. Oh, I hope this is unlisted. I do that every time. Well, we'll see in just a second. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for one of our last chats for Monster. This is the final bind up. We're going to be talking about the very end of the story. We will probably almost certainly come back for a full series chat at the end of this on Philip's channel. So we have one more after this, but we are donezo. As far as what we're going to read next, we just posted a poll on my channel. By the time you see this, the poll will be done. So next video, we will officially tell you what won, or you can just look at the community tab on my channel. Anyway, Philip, we're done. How you
Yes.
feeling?
So much excitement.
Yeah?
Lots of excitement. Yeah. No, I enjoyed this bind up. I enjoyed this series a lot. It is now my third favorite manga I've ever read.
Mm-hmm.
So of course I've only read 3, but
You've read 3. Yep. I wasn't going to call you out on it again. You said that off camera a couple weeks ago, I think. And I was like, you've read 3.
I just think it's nicer to say third place rather than last place. But
Yeah, but you were positive on it. You just
I'm
don't
very
have a
positive.
lot to pit it
Yeah.
against.
I mean, put it again. Vagabond was it just blew me away.
Yeah.
I mentioned that in my favorite reads of the year so far video. I think that's one that's going to stay with me
Mm-hmm.
forever. And I
Yeah.
love Vinland Saga. It's all about Old Norse stuff
Oh,
and
yeah, that's close to your heart.
very close to my heart. And so Monster, I really enjoyed. It was very exciting. I was definitely looking forward to picking up each of the bind ups and finding out, okay, what's going to happen. And
What's going to happen? What does it all mean? I
yeah,
was thinking about that, Philip. Each of the 3 series that we've done unintentionally have been really close and personal to you in one way or another.
yeah,
In that, for Vinland Saga, I picked that for you specifically because of the Norse
of course.
mythology. I know that is and the Norse history that's very close to your heart.
Yep.
And then Vagabond, I picked not knowing that it was going to be really focused on flow and on Buddhism. And that's all stuff that you write about in your own published books
Yep.
and something that you care about a lot. And now we have Monster, which takes place in Germany at the same time that you lived in Germany. Like, what are the odds?
It's pretty interesting. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
whatever y'all vote on for our next pick, if it's not close, near and dear to Philip's heart, that's on you.
All your fault. No, I'm excited by all 4 of the entrants on the poll. So I'm looking forward to whatever happens there.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I think whatever ends up winning is going to be a good pick for us. So I'm excited about that.
But I do want to get well, maybe we'll save it for the end of the video, or you do want
What's
to talk
up?
now your assessment. How are you feeling about this series?
Yeah, it was a really unique series. It was unlike anything that I've read, and it was very much outside of my usual reading comfort zone. So it pushed me in a lot of ways. I think because this is so themes heavy, such a themes driven story, I was still able to connect with it, even though it was really far outside of what I would normally pick up for myself. A lot of highs, a lot of hype moments, a lot of exciting moments, lots of good stuff that it did, lots of stuff that it did that was a miss for me. So I am more mixed on it. For me too, as far as our buddy reads go, this does come in third for me as well. As
Mm.
far as series I've read outside of it, it also is a little bit lower on the list for me. But that's not to say that I enjoyed my read of this very much actually.
Yeah.
But it's not peak for me like it is for a lot of people.
Yeah, it wouldn't make my top 10 reads of all time or anything like that. But I love it.
Right.
I'm glad we did this.
Yeah, it was overall a very, very good experience.
Yeah.
I think that we'll talk about it, but it's very if you lean into the themes, then it's like, oh, what a great story. There's just a lot of outside the themes things to kind of pick at, I think.
I think even in the last volume, I wasn't completely convinced by some of the plot conveniences.
Same. We'll get into it. Actually,
Yeah.
that's a great lead into
Sure.
what I wanted to start off with, which was the setup. Because in this bind up, we have, I think, setups, reveals, and then climax and falling action. So as far as the setup, we find out that Johann is wanting to essentially orchestrate another K511 situation.
Yeah.
In the past, there has been, I think it was Lunga that brought up, there was a town that essentially destroyed itself. Everybody turned on themselves, and Johann is orchestrating that once again. So we have the setup of kind of each of our POVs all realizing Johann's plan individually at the same time. Is
Yeah.
that one of the conveniences that you were thinking of?
I mean, that's not the worst one, but
It's not the
yeah,
worst one.
it's a little kind of coincidental, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have to say, I love the fact that Urasawa named the town Ruhenheim, which means Peaceville, essentially. So it was kind of
Oh,
a
that's some good irony right there.
yeah, a little touch of irony there.
It's appropriate too. It was a sleepy, peaceful town before
Yeah,
Johann came in.
yep, and did his little
Did
master
his
thing.
dues, yeah.
Yeah,
Which I will say, I think probably actually, let me start out this way. I love the concept of ending the series like this
uh-huh.
because historically there have been multiple accountings of something like this happening where you have a town that functions perfectly normal and then some sort of push happens that causes people to turn on each other and it's devastating.
Yeah,
And I really love this idea. But because it did rely on quite a few conveniences, and because I feel like I wanted the story to draw closer to it. I wanted the story to really hone in on the horror of what was happening a little bit more and the fear of it.
yeah,
Um, and and I think throughout the series we see Johann or we hear about Johann manipulating people, convincing people into, these atrocious acts and we don't see it very many times. We just kind of hear about it. And I felt kind of the same about this town where it was kind of like, so some guys came in, they started killing, they distributed guns, people freaked out, people killed each other. And I wanted to get in there more than we did.
yeah. I think the problem is as skilled and brilliant as Urasawa is at introducing a new character and making it come alive. I think maybe in this case, it would have been better to have set this up further in advance rather than to have it all just sort of. We had never heard of Ruhenheim before this volume.
We had never met the drunk dad before this
Never
bind
met the
up.
drunk dad who plays such a vital role in the end. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of things that I thought if I had known these characters longer and been
Mm-hmm.
more connected to them, this would have been more impactful. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I thought maybe the climax was going to happen at the Red Rose Mansion or somewhere I
Oh,
knew
sure.
already, but that's what Urasawa decided to do,
Yep.
and I think it could have been more compelling, more edge of your seat kind of thing. I just wasn't as invested in the townspeople. I'm just meeting them for the first time, and it was like, okay, the guy who made Jam died. He seemed like a nice guy, but I don't really know him, you know.
Yeah.
And then it kept happening to just completely anonymous individuals, and I was like, yeah, this is creepy, but I don't feel the impact like I would if I had known these people a little bit longer, maybe.
Sure. Yeah, that
So
makes sense.
yeah, there was that, I guess.
I
And
think one thing I I'll talk about another positive before I dig into probably my biggest negative about this whole setup.
right.
Um, one thing that did ground me to all this and actually made me feel the effects a little bit more was Grimmer. Whenever so this girl who was cowering and afraid and she was involved with Roberto and then when she came out and she ended up getting shot and Grimmer was so affected, I really didn't care about her. Again, she was just introduced. She didn't really have a lot of characterization. I don't care about her. I mean, sure, sad someone died, but as a reader, it didn't do much for me. But Grimmer's reaction, which I
Yeah,
think was the point anyway, that was the first time in this whole massacre that I finally was like, there, now I'm grounded. Now I'm connected.
yeah,
Him finally giving into his emotions and finally actually being able to feel and responding not as this blackout superhero, but as Grimmer and going down and trying to get
yeah.
the shooters and admitting to, which by the way, we got the Bonaparte reveal and all this,
Yeah,
admitting to,
well, that better have happened. Yeah,
oh my goodness, that was a good reveal.
that
But
was
it
good. I
telling,
like that. I like that.
yeah, Telling Bonaparte, I don't not so much I don't blame Johann, but I understand Johann because I'd like to be erased too. I'd like to go ahead and wipe myself off of this earth too. Do
Yeah.
you realize what you've done to me? Do you understand the effects of making someone not be able to appreciate or feel anything? Shouldn't my soul be ripped apart when my son dies? Like,
Yeah.
oh, that was it. That was the moment that I was like, I feel the effects of this war. I feel the effects of what's happening. Such a good scene.
Yeah, the Grimmer parts were amazing. And as much as I felt awful when he passed away, it probably was the right thing to do. I think for Urasawa as a storyteller, that made the whole thing much more impactful. The
Oh
fact,
yeah, we had to lose one of our main cast,
yeah,
and it
yeah,
made sense that it would be him. I thought we'd lose Lunga too, actually. I was
I did
surprised that he
too.
survived.
I thought when Roberto came out, I thought, ooh, so much
Yeah,
for Luca.
it's
Yeah,
over. Yeah. Well, I mean, and two with him all the role that he's played in kind of leaping to assumptions and
yeah.
being a big part of Tenma having to be on the run and then turning and asking for Tenma's forgiveness
He said, "I'm
and
sorry."
he
Yeah,
said he was sorry. He decided to devote his life to resolving this issue and to partnering with them. I thought for sure that this would be his big, sacrifice to end it all. So I was really shocked that he survived.
yeah. I did not see the Lunga Roberto showdown coming either, but I was there for it. I mean, it
Oh
was
yeah, it was a great scene.
that
Excellent
was yeah,
scene.
excellent
And
scene.
we also saw so much humanity in Lunga in this
Yes,
where like with
yes,
with Win, I think the little boy's name
yeah.
was,
Vim, I
when
would say with a V.
Vim,
Yeah,
okay,
Vim.
with
Yeah,
Vim, and his when he was like, I think that looks like an awesome bike. I think it looks stellar, And then
yeah,
with Grimmer, after Grimmer admits all like, I feel nothing, there's no purpose, I want to be erased, and Lunga gave him something, essentially it gave him what Grimmer had given the little boy on the bridge, and he was like,
yeah.
"You matter to me. I want that beer with you at the end of all this." I loved that scene.
Yeah, that was great. You're absolutely you said it perfectly. Lunga's humanity really did unfold in this
Yeah.
big win as far as his character goes. Also, another big plus for me was early in the volume, so it was probably let's see, this would be 17 and 18, I guess, right, from the original. But this is volume 9 in the perfect edition, so it would have been volume 17 where we get more of the Nina parts and
Mhm.
her putting things together and the memories of what actually happened there. That part was always a big driver for me. Like, okay, what is going on with Nina? What is going on with Johan? How did
Right.
this happen?
What are the memories she's suppressing?
What are the memories? And I wasn't 100% convinced by Johan being the in the wig and dressing up as her. I was like, why was their mother dressing him up like a sister? It's
Why
never.
not chop her hair off?
Yeah, why not chop her hair off? Maybe the only thing I can think of is the mother was trying to hide the fact that one of them was a boy because they were experimenting on boys.
Okay, but we found out that Nina was the one at the Rose Mansion.
I know. So yeah, it just doesn't make. I could not explain.
It seems like it would
It
be
just seemed
so
like a.
much
Yeah, go ahead.
harder to get a toddler to keep a wig on than to just cut off the other
That's
toddler's hair.
That's true. Like yeah, or a 6 year old even. Um,
Right. You're right. Sorry.
yeah,
Age.
I cannot explain why that scene is visually compelling.
Mhm.
It's creepy. That's the big, kind of what one image that will stick with me forever is I guess it was actually Johan dressed up like his sister, smiling, saying "Welcome home." And
Yeah. That
that
was a
that
good twist. That was a good reveal to finally understand that scene.
yeah. So I did find it good storytelling in the sense that, oh, okay, this is kind of cool. But when I thought about it for a moment, I was like, why was she dressing him up like that? And I couldn't come up with a good explanation for that. So
Yeah. I never really understood that either. I mean, it makes sense that she's hiding them, and it makes sense that she's trying to pass the twins off as one child so that she'd be
yeah,
harder to find, and like all of that makes sense, but why make that exact choice
yeah.
was I didn't really get that either.
But it does also relate to Johan dressing up as Nina later on.
Sure.
So
And I think it lends itself to the reveals, finding out that actually it was Nina at Rose Mansion,
yeah,
and all this time, Johann has kind of been internalizing what happened to her and all that. It lends itself to the reveals. Just
yes.
logically, I don't fully
Yeah,
understand it.
I think it's one of those things where if you overthink it, you can diminish your enjoyment of that moment, which
Yeah.
is I think I like it as storytelling,
Yeah.
and just let it go with it, and it's kind of cool, really, if you just
Hmm.
go with it. So I
Yeah.
didn't like too much, but I will say that all that past baggage, that whole history, the getting pieces of it, that's really masterfully done for the most part. I
Yep.
think.
Agreed. Agreed. I really, really loved the reveals. And I think I want to move on to all the reveals in this bind up in just a second because I really pretty much only have positive to say about all that. But
Cool.
before we do, let me complain
Okay.
because my biggest negative about the setup and really about this bind up is that Lotto couple.
Oh, the
Did
law.
you Oh, all right, let me just go off. I
Okay.
did not like their role in this. I also just don't think it was needed. We could have just axed them all together and the story would have been better in my opinion because Johann had this master plan to orchestrate this town turning on each other and his plan was solid. Bringing people in, shooting people at random, causing that kind of terror and then also passing out guns so that people would act in that terror. That's a good plan. Like
Yeah.
that works.
Yeah.
However, this story already relies so much on conveniences. So to have the climax also just conveniently have this couple that's completely separate from Johann's plan, that's not even being manipulated by him,
Uh-huh.
win the lottery, and then all of a sudden go, I need all the guns. I need to protect myself and lose my mind. Like in tandem to what Johann is doing, they're also doing it on their own. Felt
Yeah.
just a little bit unnecessary and absurd to me.
Yeah. Um, I think that I could explain maybe from my own, I
Go
guess,
for it.
feeling. I'll try. I'll do my best. I think maybe what Urosawa might have been doing with that couple is he's trying to give some of the townspeople some personality.
Mhm.
And I definitely know people in my life who basically live to win the lottery. Like that is their reason for
Sure.
existing. I'm sure everybody knows people like that who they talk about it all the time. One day I'm going to win. I'm going to hit it big, and it's just sort of living for that moment that's probably never going to happen.
Mhm.
So there is something I think interesting about human psychology in that sense. And then what happens when you do win and suddenly you're mistrustful and it's not the blissful thing you think it's going to be. It's more a source of paranoia.
Yeah.
The fact that it's so convenient for what's going on in the town and so coincidental is kind of, again, this is something I think that if Urasawa had been setting this up a couple bind ups
Sure.
ago, it would have been more interesting.
Would've been more palatable.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I don't think that their characterization is necessarily bad.
right.
It's more just I think Urasawa just he loves his themes and he loves his parallels, and I love that he loves that.
Yeah.
But sometimes when he wants to create these parallels, it feels too forced, too much like I want two things running at the same time that thematically are doing the same thing and that reinforce each other. So I'm just gonna make it happen. And it feels just too like, wow, that is some kind of convenience that this happens to be happening at this exact moment in time while Johann is orchestrating. And I don't feel like they added enough to kind of justify that convenience, at least for me. Just, I'm happy for people to disagree. That's just kind of how I felt about it.
No, I can see where you're coming from there. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's yeah. I think I see why Urasawa included it, and I again I think if he had done it a little earlier, maybe it could have worked a little better
Maybe.
in terms of how you would receive that part of the story.
Sure, sure. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
So, reveals. Let's go back to Bonaparte.
Oh my
Did
goodness!
you guess that he was the barkeep?
I thought that when the old couple was in the hotel, I
Yeah.
thought okay, maybe it's the old man, and who the woman is, I don't know. Someone who he picked up along the way, but
Yeah.
it's probably the old man. So, and when Lunga saw the mud on the old man's shoes because he's in a wheelchair, he's like,
Mhm.
and then Lunga has a tendency to be very observant and clever, and then blurt out what he knows. Like he's like, dude, could
Oh,
you
Lunga.
could you not keep that inside? Where you
Oh,
just like
Lunga.
so happy you figured that out, you had to say, so you got mud on your shoes, eh? It looks like you might have been walking outside. It's like, I know you're not. Couldn't you have held that in a little bit
I'm
longer?
so mad that I have so much affection for that character now. I loved hating him, and with this final arc, I really love him
I do
now, which
too.
is so annoying.
Yeah. We're gonna have to join the Lunga fan club now. Yeah.
I'm gonna be that person in the club that never stops picking on him, but secretly loves him.
That every fan club needs that person.
Absolutely. Like, it's become a meme in my Discord now where we just post chopsticks because of that one scene where Lunga was like, "Okay, I'm Tenma." And he picks up chopsticks and he's like, "I am Japanese." Like, it's
Oh,
so goofy.
yeah.
Anyway, I think that that reveal was brilliant because
Yeah, I didn't see
he
it. I didn't see it.
looks
I didn't see it.
no, no, me either. And I feel stupid because he looks exactly like the flashback
I mean,
Bonaparte.
with the beard and everything, and
Yeah,
then he
just a
shows the
little bit
face.
older.
He shows the face, and you're like,
But we
oh,
saw his face before the reveal. So I should
yeah,
have I even remember with the puppeteer. I remember when we first were introduced to him, I thought that must be Bonaparte because look at that nose. They look the same. And then
yeah.
it wasn't. It was his son. So when I saw the barkeep, I should have done the same thing, but I didn't.
The old innkeeper. No, it was brilliant. That was a
Oh,
really,
innkeeper, not barkeep.
yeah.
Sorry.
Well, there might be a bar in the inn somewhere. So, but yeah, no, it was absolutely brilliant, nicely done, very subtle, and of course, because the old man Bonaparte, or his real name is Papa, I guess.
Right.
Klaus Papa, I think.
He has a million names. They're
Yeah.
all
But I think his real name was German because he was,
right.
yes, his family was of German descent, though had been living in what is now the Czech Republic. And a part of the Czech Republic, interestingly, called keeps coming up is Brno, or I'm not sure how to say that in Czech, but it was Brunn or something like that in German. I have ancestors who came from there, actually.
No kidding.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. I'm
German
saying all
speaking.
these are so
Yeah.
personal to you.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, the fact that he was so nice, the innkeeper, Klaus Papa, that he was so gentle and trying to help this kid whose father is an alcoholic by telling him, you have value,
Yeah.
you are, and it's like, okay, that I was expecting a monster. I was expecting a twisted, mustache twirling, and we got this gentle old guy who
Regretful.
regrets. So he's riddled with regret.
He is. He's
Yeah.
so riddled with regret.
Yeah.
And I also appreciate going back to Grimmer that Bonaparte essentially said, "There's no reconciling what I've done.
No
There's no
redemption.
making amends.
Yeah.
So I'll just accept whatever sentencing is handed to me by Johann." And Grimmer's like, "No, you won't. You
Yeah.
will live, you will confess, and you will live with what you've done." And I
Yeah.
really appreciated that. Um, from Grimmer, like that kind of you're right. There is no justice for what you've done. The closest justice you can have is to have to confess and face it and not just accept your execution.
Yeah.
Um, so I really, really liked that from Grimmer, as well as seeing that regret from Bonaparte. It was a bit strange to me, and this was in the climax or the in the midst of his greatest evil days. He fell in love with the twins' mom,
Yeah.
and then his reaction to love was to become a serial killer. Well, he already was horrifying, but basically, I want to kill everybody that has ever known her, that has ever known the twins, that has ever known about the experiment. Death to all because I love this girl. And I guess the idea was I want to, similar to Johann, I want to erase
Right.
this thing because I realize now what I've done was wrong. But it was weird to me because he didn't. Like, yes, he killed the one she loved and he killed several people, but he
42.
42, but he didn't kill everybody that knew about the experiment. That's why Johann is doing this right now.
Right.
So did he just realize he was wrong and pull back? Like, I feel like I never really got a explanation for how all that worked.
Yeah, that doesn't quite all mesh together, does it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. He fell in love with the twins' mother, whose name was Anna, I guess,
Mhm.
right? And that gave him a sort of change of heart, I guess. I mean, that instigated his change of heart, and he wrote that letter, which we now fully understand the context of that letter. I give you your name back, and there's so much in here about names. That's just so
Oh, yeah.
cool. About
Hugely.
yeah, about knowing who you are, and knowing that the twins. I love that Urasawa didn't ever tell us what the names were that the mother had for the twins. She tells
Right.
Anna at the end, and he goes to tell Johann. We need to talk about the fact that Johann is alive at the end of this.
We absolutely do.
I wondered how you felt about that as I was reading. I was like, Murphy's not going to be a. I'm not sure how Murphy's going to feel about this.
Yes, we need to talk about it.
Yeah, but I do love that he didn't tell us the names. He kept it away from the readers, so they left
Yeah.
that open.
There's a lot around the mom that is still kind of shrouded
Yeah,
in a good way, in a very good way.
he's in a nunnery in the south of France, and doesn't
Yeah, and
he
even
want?
that finding out that when Bonaparte came in and said, "Give me a kid," and she was like, "This one. No, this one," and she had to pick one and
Oh, that's a scene.
right.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, that scene.
yeah,
And the fact that Johann was so affected, by it, by like, okay, so did she mean to choose me? Did she even know which kid she was choosing? Did she choose
yeah,
at random? Did she pick the
yeah.
wrong one? And, like, I can't imagine how that would torture a person to live with knowing that your mom had to do that. I don't and I can't imagine her mental state in that moment either. There's a lot in that scene.
Yeah, that is a very disturbing and really wonderfully executed scene, I thought. And
Absolutely.
that was the moment more than any other when as much as, and I'm not exonerating Johann in any way whatsoever, but that was the moment more than any other in the whole series where I felt an understanding of Johann, a
Yeah, of
connection
how
to,
he could have
even a
spiraled so
connection,
hard.
even a connection, I would say, to him, where I was like,
Mm,
oh, yeah,
yeah,
this poor kid. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think a lot of kids, maybe even most kids, at some point struggle with, okay, is my sibling loved more than me? Like
Sure.
yeah, you kind of have that. And this is like taking that to an extreme
Yeah.
because his mom actually had to make a choice. And
Yeah.
I think it was random. I think she didn't know which kid was on which side and
He was
she
in
just
complete panic mode there.
panicked and just pushed one away. I can't imagine having to live with that for the rest of your life that you did that. Like, oh my goodness. Everybody that's had to live with memories of that moment, how could that not disturb you?
And she seems, even when Tenma meets her, she seems pretty traumatized. Like she's in
Oh,
a peaceful place, but
yeah.
there's some awful stuff just under that placid surface there
Yeah.
that I think Urusawa really beautifully gets across
Yeah.
in very subtle ways.
Yeah. Absolutely agree. Another reveal that just about wrecked me. And
Mm.
it's so funny because I was reading with a friend and she was like, "Okay, am I supposed to care?" And I'm over here like losing my mind. And it was the Roberto reveal.
Oh, Roberto.
I
Yes.
died. When okay, so we get in the same chapter, we get Grimmer dying and the little boy, Vin, saying, I don't know anything about him. I don't know his real name. He didn't even want me to remember his name. He just wanted me to remember his friend's name.
Yeah.
And that even in his last moments, all Grimmer cared about was, I have to protect this name that I promised I would remember. And then in that very same chapter, we find out that it was Roberto.
Yeah. That he was the nephew of the Czech
He was
secret.
the boy with the cocoa.
He was the Coco dude. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I actually knew.
No,
Actually,
you didn't.
no, not that it was him, but I felt that probably Roberto is another product of 511 Kinderheim. That he's got to be connected with this somehow. But I did not put together that he was, what was the guy, Alfred or something? That he was the nephew of the Czech secret police guy, the one who was Grimmer's friend. That
This was a
was,
very rude reveal.
yeah, yeah. That was tough because I do not like Roberto.
No,
I'm not a big Roberto
no.
fan. Yeah.
And no, and I don't want to like him and I don't want to be connected to him and I don't want to feel I want him to die and I want to move on.
But
So
he
the
likes
fact
Coco Murphy.
Yeah, shut up. The fact that he's Grimmer's friend, that
Yeah.
Grimmer's been holding on to all this time, and all this time that Grimmer's been remembering this boy,
He likes
he turned
insects.
into what'd
He,
you say?
he likes insects,
Shut
and,
up.
and he never hurts them.
Stop talking to me. Anyway, the whole time Grimmer actually he was remembering this boy, and the whole time this boy was made a monster too
Yeah,
because of what happened to him.
yeah. That was
Kill
good.
me.
That was very good
It was an
storytelling.
amazing reveal.
Yeah.
It was an amazing reveal, and it was so rude, and I'm so glad Grimmer never had to find out.
Oh, I'm glad too. Yeah, yeah.
That
It's
is
good
one mercy that this series gave me. It
because
didn't give me many, but that is one.
he easily could have done a Grimmer Roberto showdown,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which I'm glad he didn't. I'm glad
I'm
he
glad
did
he
it the way
didn't.
he did
I
with
think,
yeah,
yeah, it would thematically it would have worked. Story-wise, it would have worked. It would have made perfect sense to actually get Grimmer and Roberto having to face each other and realize who they are, and Grimmer having to realize this kid I've remembered is actively harming people I love, like having to make a choice. I don't even he could have done it. I'm so glad he didn't because I was already so emotionally wrought with this series. I
yeah,
didn't need that too.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like the way he did it. It's not the move you would expect necessarily.
Mm-mm.
If I had been writing this, I would have the first logical thing I would think of is, oh, we got to have a Grimmer out, whatever his name is, Roberto showdown, and I like the way Urasawa did it better, actually.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's not the most obvious answer,
right.
and it ended up having so much effect because, 1, we got the reveal on our own, apart from Grimmer. 2, Grimmer got some mercy, which he desperately needed.
Yeah.
And 3, I think it it leaves us having to say, "Oh my goodness, what if they did have that showdown?" Which is almost more satisfying than actually seeing the showdown.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, I think that was the last big reveal, so
Okay. So
let's get to the climax.
yeah, let's do it. So last video, I would jokingly said everybody's going to be in a circle and shoot each other. I mean,
Just about.
it didn't exactly happen like that, but it kind of sort of happened, didn't it?
Would Tenma have pulled the trigger
Ugh.
if Drunk Dad wasn't there, and if Johann pushed the gun on the boy and said, "Shoot me or he dies," would Tenma have saved the boy or would he have choked?
Yeah, because Johann was trying to basically give him this ultimatum. The fact that Tenma, and we're going to talk more about this too, but the fact that he did perform surgery on Johann again and save him again
We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
makes me rethink my initial answer. My initial answer is yes, he would have saved the boy
Mm,
because he did shoot Roberto in the moment when his life was in danger. And I feel like he would also want to protect that boy in the same way. So my initial answer is yes, he would have. Would it have affected him horribly? Yes. Would it have made him full of regret for the rest of his life? Yes. Would it have turned him into a less happy person than we get to see at the end? Yes. But he would have done it, I think. What do you think?
I think so too. Yeah. I think he would have done it. I think he would have needed that to do it. I think he would have always let Johann go.
Yeah.
But if a child's life was in the balance, I think he would have chosen the child.
Yeah.
We'll
I
never
think
know.
I think so.
So, three big reveals happen at the end. Not reveals. Three big events happen in the end. And I want to hear your thoughts on all three because I
Okay.
have a monologue. So,
Okay.
the drunk is the one that pulled the trigger. He's the one that shot Johann.
Yeah.
Tenma performed the surgery again.
Yeah.
Johann is no he's on the loose.
Not
So,
only is he alive, he's pretending to be asleep, and then at the end, there's an empty bed. That's the last panel.
what do you think about these three things that happened?
Okay. Um, okay, good. Put it in a positive light. I would not have predicted any of that. So, on the plus side, on the perhaps more critical side, the fact that I don't remember his name, so I'm really sorry. We're just referring to him as Drunk Dad, but
I
that's
don't know that he ever got a name.
he did. I think he did at one point, but
Did he?
yeah.
I'm fine with calling him. You can call him child abuser if you want. If you
I
want to
mean,
go
he's
for
a
a
child
different
abuser
name.
too. Yeah, not a saver, not the best person. Just the fact that he was introduced so late into this makes it less impactful once again, I think. And
Agreed.
if we had known him earlier, that would have been maybe more interesting. But okay, there it is. That's what Urasawa did there. The fact that Tenma again does the surgery on Johann. Okay, so the question here is very philosophical too. It's very kind of personal and real world in the way it's presented, but it's very philosophical. Is it a doctor's duty to save life whenever possible? And that's the thing that Tenma is struggling with. And there is definitely, I think, a very compelling argument that yes, you as a doctor, it is your duty, is your sacred duty to save a life if you can. Even if it's Johann, the serial killing, child manipulating, horrible monster. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, then you could argue though, wait, is if you save this guy's life and if he happens to disappear out of his hospital bed and do more murdering, have you actually destroyed more lives, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how happy it's an ending that leaves me, and it's going to sound like a complaint, but it's not. I think some endings are good as being unsatisfying, and this is an unsatisfying ending in some way because you want to see Johann punished. There's a part of us that wants that rough justice, that wants to see him suffer for what he did and be annihilated. And so there's a part of me that's left unsatisfied. I'm sure many readers would feel, this is where I feel like somebody mentioned earlier that the ending's actually kind of divisive. And now I see why, because I think a lot of people want that satisfaction of, yeah, the bad guy gets it. Johann doesn't. He gets away.
No. Yeah.
He gets away. So the fact that Tenma did the surgery is very upsetting to me, but I can see a moral argument for it. And the fact that Johann gets away is very upsetting to me, but I'm kind of like, yeah, Urasawa, good for you. You took a chance here. You took a risk. And while I'm not satisfied, I think you did a really compelling job there. And you left many things just open at the end. So I'm okay with that. What's
the empty bed?
Yeah, the empty bed. He's leaving things like so open and unresolved. And I think the first instinct for a lot of people is that is not satisfying. But it's different and it's kind of interesting.
So you didn't like it, but you respect the game. You respect the bravery of it.
That's a good way to summarize it. Yeah.
All right, cool. I feel about these three instances the same way that I think about the series as a whole. If you look at it thematically, stellar. If you look at it logistically, it's messy. So okay, the climax. We'll start there with the gun. This whole series has built or has been building on who's going to do it. Can Tenma pull the trigger? Will Nina step in? Will Lunga have a turning point and be the one to finally, assist? Is it going to be Eva because she's been built up and, like what's her purpose in the end? Is it going to be Grimmer who takes down one of his own people who has had the same experience as him? Like, who's it going to be? How's it going to play out? And the answer is a drunk child abuser from the alley who we just met this bind up.
Yeah.
Right? So thematically, stellar, because it leaves a lot of things open-ended. Could they have done it? Could any of these people have done it? I think Lunga could have and should have. But the rest of it, could they have? Would they have? And one of the big themes in this series has been that even your greatest evil person is capable of good, and even your greatest moral person is capable of evil.
Yeah.
Right? So thematically showing Bonaparte having this regret and kindness, showing Lunga having these soft moments, and then having this person who is introduced to us as nothing but a drunk and a child abuser, almost like leaning into it so hard that it's almost kind of funny, him lying in the alley going booze when we first meet him, like it's so, you meet him and you're just like, well, that guy's scum. And then we don't really see him again except for walking the streets in a stupor until he is the one to end it all. So he's pure, we hate him, and he's the one that does it, right? So thematically it all works. Story-wise, is it satisfying? I'd say no. All this build-up around these characters that we're invested in who are training to do it, and then none of them do. It's this random guy over here that we just met. I don't think that's satisfying. But for the themes, it works really well.
What did you think of him being seeing Johann as this horned monster, which is definitely a callback to the quote from Revelations at the very beginning of the series?
Yeah.
Like, that was interesting. I thought
that was very interesting. Yeah, that was definitely very interesting. And he was even walking around going, the devil came into this town, and that sort of thing. And then Tenma doing the surgery. Thematically, love it, because Tenma, this whole time, we've been asking the question, can Tenma pull the trigger? Yeah. Then at the climax, we find out that that was the wrong question. The question was actually, when faced with it, will Tenma still be a doctor first? He will save lives, always first, because that's who he inherently is. Would he have pulled the trigger? We'll never know. But the real question was, will he always save a life, right? So thematically, love. Logistically, he hasn't had a doctor's license for 10 years. He hasn't practiced brain surgery in 10 years. What hospital is going to let him in there?
Okay, it's like riding a bicycle. It's like riding a bicycle.
No, it's not. What hospital is going to be like, yes, you're better than all of our in-house surgeons? I don't know about that. And then the fact that Johann is shot in the head again, survives it again, gets an impossibly difficult surgery that goes off without a hitch again. Like, it's not the most satisfying. Full circle, very nice. But logistically, not so satisfying. The empty bed. Thematically, love it. Logistically, why are the cops in the series so incompetent? Why was no one guarding that bed? This man has killed hundreds, if not thousands of people recently. Why is no one guarding this bed? Why did he just slip out so easily?
Because he was faking his coma.
Neato. There should have been someone at that door.
Yeah, in case he woke up, maybe. Yeah.
So it depends on what angle you want to look at it. If you want to look at it from a themes perspective, which I think is what Urasawa was trying to do the most with his series, then I think it is a really compelling end. But I think that this is a story where if you look at it too hard, there's a lot of stuff that kind of crumbles.
Yeah. Like, wouldn't there be bars on the window?
Man, there's a lot of questions I have.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that guy, like, pushing up my glasses and saying, wait a minute, and but there are a lot of those moments in the series as a whole, and even at the end and I was kind of hoping that everything would be explained here at the end, and some of these coincidences would feel like not so coincidental.
A little bit more masterful.
But that's not always the case. Yeah,
Sure. Yeah, and this is not a series where I needed every answer.
right.
I'm happy to leave certain things open-ended, but as you said, some of the coincidences, some of the things that are like, "Okay, but how did that logistically work?"
At the same time, if you let yourself roll with it, you could be
Yes.
like, "Whoa, this is
Yes, if
cool."
you'll just get swept up in the drama of it all,
Right.
then I can totally understand this being a favorite because it's so like the high points, the big reveals, the big moments are incredible. And the main driving plot with the Rose Mansion and with the twins that have forgotten some things and that are so connected, but we don't know how, with Johann being off page and doing all this puppetry, with Bonaparte being the true monster of the story while Johann's still a monster of his own. Like all of these things, all of these main ideas are really phenomenal.
Yeah.
Again, it's just if you look too hard at the details, they crumble. So I think I mean, there's so much greatness in this, and there's so much that I enjoyed in it. Um, but my technical brain does sometimes struggle to just roll with things.
Yeah, I mean, he set up something pretty complex there
Yeah.
with a lot of moving parts and a lot of, it's a fairly intricate thing that he's trying to bring together here at the end. And I'd say for the most part, he does it really well. If
It
you
was
look,
a really enjoyable finale.
yep, yep, yep. It's like a work of art that if you stand back from it, it's like, wow, this is amazing. But if you get really close and you see some of the things, wait, these lines don't connect, and you could critique it that way, I think.
Mhm.
But I loved the experience overall, and I found myself, as I said in the beginning, very interested in every page. I was kind of going through this pretty quick. I was like, all right,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. So
It was a really fun buddy read. It was a good one to do together. I think I would not well, like all of the ones that we've read together, I would not have enjoyed it on the same level if we weren't fixating and discussing and theorizing.
yeah, the discussions. I mean, this is always the case, but perhaps this is even more so than usual. The discussions really made this much more fun.
I agree. I think too, though, if we weren't pausing at the end of every bind up and analyzing every single detail, we probably could have rolled with it a little bit easier.
Yes, yeah.
Because then we would have just like your daughter, she found your manga in the basement and she just blew through the series.
He read the all 9 bind-ups in 2 days, and then
Oh, I feel like I personally need to apologize to her because I put those manga in your house by suggesting this series.
yeah, she read them in 2 days,
And Meg was very scared.
and then was scared enough
And I
to.
think if we were reading it on our own, we wouldn't have paused. We wouldn't have said, "Okay, well, look at this detail and what does it mean and how is it connected?" And
Yeah,
we wouldn't have been hyper analyzing it enough as much.
true,
So
true.
while I think the buddy read amplified it, I also think the buddy read made us see the cracks more.
You're very right. That's a great point. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, there are some reads that are better experienced as like a wild ride where
Mm,
you're not thinking about it too much, and then there
mm,
are some reads that really benefit from pausing a lot and discussing and thinking about it and going back even and that
yeah,
sort of thing. So
yeah, I agree.
well, I can see why someone would be a fan of this series.
Oh, big time.
Yeah, there's a lot to love here. I'm a fan. I mean, there's just a lot of great storytelling in here that I'm willing to overlook the bonbons. So I don't like.
I'll still enjoy the series despite the bonbons, but I'm gonna complain about them.
Good bonbons are bad for you. That's the moral of the story.
That's the moral of the story. That's what Urasawa was trying to say the whole time.
Yep, yep. So,
Okay, so is there anything else that you feel like we needed to touch on?
I'm sure we missed something in all of this, but I think we got the big stuff
We
pretty
got the
well.
big stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
Overall, a very, very positive experience. Maybe not a new favorite for us, but a very enjoyable one to discuss.
yep, good summary. Yep. Thank you, Murphy, for the experience of reading this.
Happy
I really,
to.
really
Yeah,
loved
of
it.
course.
I enjoyed it thoroughly. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you for joining me. This has been a lot of fun. We are going to do one more video talking about the series as a whole. Probably, do you think spoiler free or do you think we'll make it spoiler?
We could start spoiler free, I think. and
Okay.
then move into
Move
spoilers.
into spoilers. So we'll do one more series wide. What do we think? Kind of a video, and in that one, we'll also announce what the winner of the poll was, so that y'all can be prepared. Get ready with us for the next one if you like reading along with us. And thank you again, Philip, for joining me for the discussion. Thank you all for discussing it with us as we go along. And we will see you again next week on Philip's channel.
Yep.
Bye.